We have a great group of gentlemen here to share their experiences in their fields, and I'm going to go ahead and just address each one of them and kind of introduce them to you all. First, we have Brian Polk, who is a writer and showrunner for Jimmy Kimmel Live and No You Shut Up. We have Nick Agate, who is the Vice President of Sync Fab. Thank you, Nick. We have Steve Fisher, who is the Vice President of APA. And we have Charles Winston, who is a retired costume designer. Thank you, Charles.
I love comedy. Growing up, I think I watched Saturday Night Live all the time. My dad would watch Monty Python. I loved that show. And then I also grew up in this tiny town called Amarillo, Texas, and I was the only Jewish kid in Texas, was what it felt like. So in order to acclimate myself to the community, I played football, and I also developed a sense of humor so that no one would beat me up. So it was a nice, comedy was nice. I was providing comic relief for a lot of people, and I loved making myself the butt of most of the jokes. And I thought, man, if I could make people laugh, I'd love to do this forever. And kind of ended up into a career in comedy.
Awesome.
And then, do you want to hear my journey after?
Yeah, sure.
After college. I'll make it snappy. Let's see. I wanted to work on the David Letterman show, so I applied to be a page at CBS, which is in New York. They have interns there that are paid interns, and so you basically were the audience coordinator for all these shows. So you shuffled in the live audience, and then you told them kind of the rules of how to behave in the studio. And from there you were hoping, hey, maybe I'd get lucky and get a job working at Letterman, which maybe 1 in every 300 pages got to do. So I kind of read the writing on the wall quickly, and a job in the news opened up at 48 Hours, which is a 24-hour news program. They used to do a day in the life of someone, 2 days in the life of someone, so that's why it was called 48 Hours. So I got into the news. I don't know why I did it. It was just to make some money. I took the job, and I ended up writing these wraparound sort of interstitials for the host of the show, who was Dan Rather. And I wasn't the head writer. I was writing stuff for the head writer, and everything was a joke to me. And they said, maybe you shouldn't be in news. Maybe you should try some comedy. And so they introduced me to this group called the Upright Citizens Brigade, who had just started in New York, one of the executive producers, and I started working on that show. And then from there it led to numerous jobs in production. I was a PA on every bad cable comedy show. And then I left comedy because I actually needed to make a little money. I ended up being I had a business background in college and became a certified financial analyst. And I don't know why I was doing that. A guy who actually worked at 48 Hours, who I met, his name was Andy Cohen, called me and said, hey, I'm starting this network called Trio. I ended up there, quit that job, wrote for this show called Trio, which ended up becoming Bravo. And then I went to another show after that called Best Week Ever, which was like a daily show for pop culture. Then I wanted to try my hand at late night comedy. I found out that there was an opening at Jimmy Kimmel Live. I sent in packet after packet, and they finally liked one, and they hired me. And so I worked there for 7 years. And then I met this comedian on Best Week Ever. His name was Paul F. Tompkins, who was starting this show here called No You Shut Up, which was the puppet show. And he asked me to leave my job, which was a fantastic job, and I will never have to work again if I just stayed there. And I quit, which was probably a bad idea. And worked on this show called No You Shut Up, which I'm currently on now, which is crazy and fun to watch. And that's my story.
Current occupation, I'm working with a startup company called SyncFab. We have a CEO who has experience in China, lived there for the last 16 years. He's a real business type on a very serious level, so that takes me to be more of the artistic type, which I am. So I work with them. I also have 5 materials I design that are at Material Connection, which is a database of material innovations. Those are shown at 10 different locations around the world. I've done a plastics process, a glass and metals process, and I like making things, so I like to explore with materials. How and why did I select my career? I guess is the question. I don't know, it just sort of happened. I've done a lot of different things. I'm a curious person. I like to explore. When I first got out of college, I found myself in the entertainment business. I worked for Bob Shanks, who is the creator of 2020, Good Morning America. So, and I enjoyed that, but there was something about the, I also worked for Alan Landsberg Productions and worked for David Wolper. I found that there was a certain uncertainty with being in the entertainment business. You'd be in a job working on a show, and then you never knew how long the show was going to last, and then you'd have to reinvent yourself, do something else. So I made the decision of becoming a fine artist, which was also another stable career. Left and went to Italy and lived in a town in Tuscany called Pietrasanta, which is where Michelangelo worked. I worked in marble. Came back, figured out how to self-promote myself, found a celebrity who was willing to give me a show at their corporate headquarters. That was Ernest Borgnine, who you guys probably don't know, but he's an old actor. Which went well. I promoted it and had a lot of people show up, sold my work, and shown with quite a number of galleries around the country of various types. I did a project called Stone Postcards, where I sent out stone postcards to very famous people, and I was sort of famous for about 2 weeks and was on all sorts of TV and radio shows. That was kind of fun, but I didn't actually know where to take that. So I ended up eventually teaching at Art Center College of Design. I taught materials of art and design. I taught model construction for transportation designers. And I created a class called Made in Los Angeles, where I took students around to various factories. I've been to about 200 different factories around the Los Angeles area, and created a collaboration with MIT, which I'm currently working with, doing tours for their alumni organization, and also Caltech. And I also did things with Debbie's book, which is entertainment related. So I took people to entertainment places that did costumes, props, sort of all over the board. And automotive related, I did some programming with Ed Justice, who has an oil company, and I was just there last week. So really covering kind of all different types of products and tours, and that's what I'm doing with SyncFab. Currently, we're doing tours. We were at a 3D printer last week. I'm doing programming in the Bay Area, various companies up there as well. So anyway, that was probably a long answer, but
No, thank you.
did I cover everything?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
My current job is I'm vice president of and head of the intellectual property group at APA, which is Agency for the Performing Arts. It's one of the larger talent literary agencies in the country. We have offices in Beverly Hills, New York, and Nashville. The agency reps, writers, directors, actors. We have a big below-the-line department, which is editors, directors of photography. We represent branded licensing. We've got a huge reality department. I mean, we pretty much cover most everything. A huge music practice as well. One of my colleagues booked the $30 million Fleetwood Mac tour not long ago. So it's we kind of have our hands in most aspects of the business. My route to where I am now was a kind of circuitous and really, frankly, tortured one. I'm from New York. I went to college at a small liberal arts college outside of New York City called the Delphi University. And when I graduated, I knew I wanted to be in film or TV, but I really didn't know what that meant. Nobody in my family was in the business. I I had a vague sense of how exciting I thought it all was, but beyond that, I really knew nothing. And so I ended up kind of stumbling into news, kind of like you. And I worked on a couple late night shows, and then there was an opening. There was a 2-week opening on World News Tonight, and I grabbed it, and I ended up staying there for 5 years, and I became the head of the research department and an off-air reporter for World News Tonight when Peter Jennings was the anchor for the show. And that was really kind of fascinating. But at some point, I realized this is not what I wanted to do when I grow up. I mean, I just, I kind of like news in the way that I wanted to stay on top of what was happening in the world, but I wasn't a news junkie. And to be in that job, you've got to be a real diehard junkie. And so I started looking around, and I kind of banged on the doors of all the movie companies in New York, the things that were doing kind of scripted, what we call scripted programming. And they all told me the same thing. They all just said, look, there's nothing here. You got to move to LA. And I'd been to LA once and I didn't like it. So I thought, I don't know quite what to do with this, but I thought I've just got to take a wild ass flyer and I'm going to do this. So I sold everything I had. I bought a one-way ticket. I flew out here. I didn't know anybody. And, but I had a list of names that people gave me. And I just started calling people. And this is kind of a funny story, actually. It was the writer's strike of 1988. And I was too stupid, frankly, to know what that really meant. But, the business doesn't shut down to that degree very often. I mean, it has hardly happened. It's happened twice in the last 25 years. And I didn't quite realize how paralyzing that all was. So I would call people, and they would all meet with me. Everyone would meet with me. And I thought, I have one good resume to get in all these doors. And what I came to realize months later was that they were only meeting with me because they had absolutely nothing to do. They were sitting at their desks. They couldn't conduct business, so what the hell, let's meet with this guy from New York. So a year later, I realized what I had for all my trouble was just a lot of parking stubs and no job. And what I realized I was missing was relationships. And in New York, I realized if you kind of worked hard, you could kind of overcome that. But in LA, I found that very, very, very difficult to overcome. And I met somebody who said to me, she said to me, what's your story? Who are you? And I told her, and I said, look, I'm kind of struggling. I've been out here for 10 months at that point. I'm still unemployed. And she said, well, you should work at an agency. And I said, I don't want to be an agent. And she said, it doesn't matter what you want. You will meet everyone. And a light bulb went off. And I thought, I didn't know much, but I knew that was good advice. So the very next day I called all the agencies, and I got a job as an assistant at ICM, which is one of the big talent agencies in town. And it was, I was 3 steps back in my career. I'd been running a department at ABC News in New York, and, to go back and schlep coffee and get yelled at was, not what I envisioned for my future at that point in time. But I also realized it was necessary. And I came to realize how little I knew. I thought I understood how the business worked, and I really realized I really knew very, very little about how the business worked. So working at an agency was really great experience, and the person who gave me that tip was absolutely right. You meet everybody. And agencies are kind of the brain centers for so much of what goes on in the business. They put together movies and TV shows, and and they're into sports. I mean, virtually, if you want to do anything in media, chances are agencies are a part of that. So in that sense, it was a great training ground. And after doing that for about 2 years, I met somebody who decided to take a flyer on me, and he said, I like you, and I think we're going to have an opening soon, and when we do, I'll hire you. And I walked out and I thought, well, that was good. That was good interview experience, but I will never hear from that guy again. And 3 months later, he called me and offered me a job. So that kind of kicked off my agenting career. And, I think, the agents are the suits of the business. So I think for a lot of people who are really, really creative, it may not necessarily be your path. And I completely get that. But I've also come to recognize how much creativity is a part of the agency and by extension the management business, and how kind of crucial they are to the process, and really kind of how much fun it can all be. Because when I came out here, I thought I want to work with creative people. That was my goal. I want to work with creative people. I thought I'm not really a director in my own right. I'm not a writer in my own right, but I know how to talk to them, and that's been really fun, and it's been a great part of my job.
I worked for
25 or so years as a costume designer for film and television, and I have since retired. So my view will always be, today will be, I'll have to turn around and look back. But the career choice, I don't know, much like the rest of these gentlemen, I didn't start out wanting to be a costume designer. I mean, I didn't even start out wanting to be in the film business. But I guess I'd have to lay it at the feet of my father, who was extremely artistic and a very creative person. So he passed that organic on to me. And it wasn't until I got exposed to films as a child, going to the movies like most of us do, that it, a light clicked on, and I decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the movie business, and I didn't know what, and I didn't know where. But I took, just like Steve, I took a circuitous route as well, as most of you probably will. I started out as a film lab technician at MGM Studios years ago. And it wasn't until much later that my love for color and how color goes together with one another, and then how it looks on the screen, was going to play a large part of my creative process. Once you work in a film lab and you get to see how the camera lens interprets color, then you'll have a jump on in terms of how the clothes will look. Of course, I didn't realize that at the time, but that experience in the film lab was invaluable. I spent 10 years there, and it wasn't until I interned I got a chance to intern for a costume designer. Her name was Patricia Norris. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with any of her work, but she did the production design and costume design for the original Twin Peaks, and then went on to do Scarface, and just did 12 years as a slave. Well, she was my mentor, and she taught me all the fundamentals, not on a daily basis, but just being in her environment. I sort of absorbed her mindset in terms of how color interacts with the camera, and vice versa. The internship eventually led to my first job. All I did was folded clothes for about a year on a show called 30-something. And then one job led to another. And the education that I received was sort of, my experience was interrupted by the education. I studied at Trade Tech, and I went to the original Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. It was a walk-up then. It was a 3-story walk-up across the street from where, well, you guys wouldn't even recognize it now, it's how far back it was. But I learned the history of fashion and the history of costume. And I guess what I'm saying is, you can find your education in a lot of different places, college being one of them, but there's just as much education on the outside as it is on the inside. And you guys should be mindful of that. Tap into your own organic. You bring that to the table. Tap into that, put that together with your education, and then there's no doubt you're going to be a success.
What's challenging about my career is that it's constantly changing. It's never the same. It's always in a state of flux, and I've had to learn so many different things. And I agree with you in terms of learning outside of school, and that's when I taught, I would always try to bring in real-world experiences at Art Center. I'd do projects with real companies, so I'd get the students out from theoretical and get them doing something for a actual business, which I think made a big difference. And I think for me, really it's about networking in life and knowing how important it is to know people and to engender those relationships, to keep those relationships active. I'm always surprised I meet people and I will never hear back from them unless I make an effort. I have books of all business cards and people I've met, and I'll make an effort to go through there periodically and contact people and say, hey, you know, hi, I'm doing this, what are you doing? And just keeping current with people, I think, is extremely important. So I would say that the way the world is now, and I've seen so much change, is that we're in a constant state of change, and that if you're going to be successful, you're going to have to be able to be adaptable to a lot of different things in your life. Because as much change as I've seen, you'll see quite a bit more the way things are moving.
Thank you, Dan.
I think for me, you know, the biggest challenge is probably, well, it's kind of a two-part answer, I guess. I think the biggest challenge is naivete about the business. You know, I work with a lot of people whose primary business is not the movie and TV business. You know, they're book authors, they're journalists, they're people whose, you know, primary source of income and the world they live in is not the world I live in. And they all think it's a lot easier than it is. You know, they watch Entertainment Tonight, they read the trades, and they see big movie deals being made, and this actor doing this, and this author selling this, and they just think that that's the norm. And they don't realize the kind of the alignment of the planets it takes to really propel projects forward and get anything on the screen, the big or the small screen. And so for me, it's sort of, you know, it's managing expectations, you know, of clients and managers and all of that, to just let them know, you know, I'm going to do everything I can to make this happen, but, you know, just know that everything on some level is an uphill battle. It really is. And things don't happen as quickly as you think it will. I mean, it's a funny thing, and I say this to people all the time. One of my biggest challenges is to explain to people why things in the movie business take so long. And I really can't put a logic on it. I don't know why they do, but they take forever. You know, I mean, I sell a movie and then it doesn't get made for 4 or 5 years. And people say to me, well, I don't get it. Why, you know, what is taking so long? It just does. You know, there's layers and layers of bureaucracy, and wading through that and finding your way through the woods just takes a long time. And there's no one reason why that happens. There's a million reasons why that happens. So it's sort of managing people and getting them to recognize just how, honestly, just how challenging the business is.
Thank you.
I'll take it. In the production design, art design, costume design departments, the most challenging, one of the most challenging aspects of it is the clock. By that I mean whether it's film or television, there's a limited amount of time that you, along with all the other departments, have to deliver your particular component. And in TV, in the 30-minute comedic genre, it's even tougher. And time management becomes extremely important. But if you step back, it doesn't matter what career you are in, you have to manage your time. in film and TV,
Yep.
as an example, we'll have a table read on, say, Tuesday. Maybe we'll have a table read on Monday. We're going to shoot the episode live in front of an audience, a live audience, on Thursday. So you have a table read on Monday, and you are reading maybe the second draft of a script, and by the end of the day on Monday, that script will have changed. Well, as you are reading the script at the table read, your wheels are turning, right? You have a somewhat of an idea of whether they're going to be exteriors or interiors, whether they're going to be party scenes, whether it's going to be whether you're going to be working on the work set, play set, whether they're going to be the children in the cast or the teenagers in the cast. So all of these wheels are running in your head. And then on Tuesday, you're going to get the final draft of the script. Well, on page 32 jumps from day 3 to day 2. So that outfit that you had on day 3 no longer exists. All right, so you drop that, but you may have picked up another character. So all of these different things are occurring right in front of you, and it's the management of time that you have to control so that by Thursday, and the script by Thursday will have changed. The script may change the day you shoot. There's a run-through, they call it a run-through. And the script may change that day. You have to be flexible, as this gentleman said, very flexible in the film, TV, in the media arts field. You have to be able to, do I date myself? Go with the flow?
That's a good one. That's so relevant.
Yeah. I mean, it is crazy. Okay, and one other thing, you're going to find it very difficult to be patient, waiting for your turn. That may or may not come, but you are going to be required to be patient. There's no degrees of patience. It just is. Just like Steve just said, waiting on your project, which in this instance is waiting on your opportunity to be creative and be what you think you want to be. You have to be patient, and don't leave too soon.
Thank you, Charles.
I think, it's important for you guys to, you're at a university, to use the resources that you have here. This is in, in television and in writing, comedy. If they're, join an improv group. Find some peers that you want to write with. Write scripts. Write spec scripts on shows that you like. Create your own show. Give yourself deadlines, because that's the hardest thing, I think, is, you can say you want to be a writer, but it just doesn't happen, and you have to self-motivate, and for that you have to give yourself deadlines. And if you're not writing every day, then you're missing out on a huge opportunity, because when I was your age, there wasn't Twitter, there wasn't Vine, there wasn't YouTube. I'm an old person. And when that stuff came around, I'm like, wow, this is a great place. This is a medium where you get to try out your material, where you get people, you have eyes on it all the time. If you're really good at Twitter and you spend some time on it, you learn how to craft a joke if that's what you want to do, and someone recognizes that, it can get you a job. I was working at, when I was working at Kimmel, we hired 2 writers because they had really funny Twitter pages. And that didn't happen 7 years ago, and that's happening now. We hired another young kid who was 23 years old because he made a really, really funny Wes Anderson parody on YouTube. And the kid got a job. He was like 40 years younger than me, and I wanted to kill him. It took me so long to get there, but I was like, man, congratulations. So you really need to take advantage of everything at the school and pay attention to every medium that's popping up. I don't care what it is, Snapchat, I don't know if that really helps at all because that's just sending you sex and stuff. But do that, the thing I said before. And I'm going to go back to the question he said, which is I think the most important thing to have too, and challenging part of all these jobs is patience. It really is. And to keep working hard.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing to that, and it's more about the nature of television today because I remember when I was little there were like 3 networks out there, and about 2 years ago one of my TV colleagues said there are 32 buyers for scripted programming, not reality, scripted programming, and I was flabbergasted by that number. I just couldn't believe that. And today there's over 60 buyers for scripted programming. So there are so many if you're a writer or if you're a creator, there are now so many opportunities to do so many different kinds of shows than existed even a half dozen years ago. It's really astonishing.
Thanks, Steve.
The first thing for the artists in the audience, you guys have to recognize the creative in yourself. If you possess it, you have to go get that and let that be your springboard. Wake it up in yourself, okay? And then you surround yourself with people that feel the same way you do about the very thing that you are so passionate about. Because if you don't do that, you're wasting your time. Hang around the people that want to do what you do. Because you're going to feed on them, they're going to feed on you. And you know what? You never know who's going to be successful and who's not. Okay, I give you that. But that person, if you respect that person and are respectful, you're going to meet that person later on. And that's your first networking that you'll get to do, is when you start hanging around the people at this stage in the process. At this stage in the process, that's your first set of network. Hone those skills because you're going to need them later on. And you know, may the best man or woman win. You know, because it's very competitive out there. Just like he said, you know, there's a 12-year-old coming up right behind you guys, okay, with all the skill set that you guys, with a skill set that hasn't been discovered yet. So you guys got to be ready. You guys got to be ready and smart. You got to be smart about it. You can, you know, hate the player, don't hate the game. Okay?
Yeah, that's clever.
So, all right.
Thank you, Charles.
I would just add to that it helps to, I agree, have people around you that are similar and doing similar things. It's good to know people that you can ask questions of and ask them what their opinion is, because I can tell you from my experience, when I was really young, I had tremendous opportunities thrown at me. I had no idea what they meant. And if I had somebody to talk to and said, gee, they just asked me if I wanted to be in a Midnight Express and that I'm not an actor, but I look like the guy, could I read for it? I say, no, I'm not an actor, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go after it. So so many times in life we are given opportunities and we don't really recognize it, and it's disguised as really hard work or something we're uncomfortable with or something that challenges us. And it helps to have like a group of people you can go to and ask. So try to develop that.
That's true. You need to surround yourself too with people who don't smoke up your ass, and you want an honest opinion, but you also want support so that you can take chances, you can take risks, and because that's what this is about. It really is. You got to put yourself out there. Throw dignity, throw yourself under the bus, because it's true. You have to take chances and you have to take risks if you want to succeed. You really do.
Well, what's changing in my field is that basically 3D printing is becoming widely available. The equipment's getting more and more advanced, so people can come up with ideas and print them out and invent in a way that before was extremely costly and now is extremely affordable. So it's making the innovation process and coming up with new ideas a lot more possible for a lot more people. So I think the opportunities out there, just technology-wise, and I was just talking to somebody I used to work with in Northern California who just said, you know, things are exploding up here. We're building huge buildings, big parks are going in, multi-billion-dollar. Things are changing. I met with a lady 2 years ago. Her name was Linda of lynda.com, and she has this site for people to take classes online. And I presented some ideas to her. Unfortunately, she didn't say yes to them, but she just sold her company for $1.5 billion. So those types of things are technology is changing every industry radically and quickly. So if you can jump in and get into a particular niche industry and get the technology aspect of it and be in the right place at the right time, and you know, the next Bill Gates could be in the room here. We don't know. I mean, it's just things are changing. It's a changing time in a way that's, I don't know, it's ever happened in the history of time. So opportunities abound.
Thank you.
You know, I think in the agency business, we're all wrestling with a couple things, and one of them is what is the nature of fame and how that has changed over the last half dozen years or so, and what that means for the future. You know, I mean, it used to be, you know, for some of my colleagues who do this, who do licensing and sponsorships and things like that, it was always, you know, who's hot in TV, who's hot in the feature world, what big actor can they get to do this or that. You know, and in the last, as we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years, it's about, you know, the rise of reality stars and, you know, people who really ostensibly have no talent. They're famous for being famous, but yet they're famous. And they're relatable in some way. So, you know, now we've seen this incredible shift that these are the people that everybody wants. Those are the people that all the big brands want to get behind and all the sponsors want. And it doesn't, the fact that, again, I don't mean to put too fine a point on this, the fact that they have no talent, nobody seems to care. You know, so, you know, they bring a certain notoriety to it, and that's their currency. So, you know, we're all trying to figure out how fame is going to happen over the next 5 or 6 years for now. And, you know, the other thing is how we're going to be consuming entertainment. So it's gone from the big screen to the small screen to the really, really small screen. And what does that mean for how we're going to be communicating and making programming, and how that's all going to change? And we're all trying to wrestle with kind of the new business models that come with, you know, a Crackle series. You know, and what does that mean for the people who are creating it financially, and what does it mean creatively? So we're all trying to figure out the new world order.
Thank you.
In my particular area, art is subjective, and it can be interpreted in more than one way. And that's, for the most part, that's pretty good. Your job as artists will be to put your particular skill set or your particular interpretation in front of the right person or right persons. So consequently, the future of art or the future of the interpretation of art is, you know, I would have to say it's infinite, you know. And in costume design, to be specific, no matter what medium the show is exhibited, they're going to be wearing clothes, you know. And fashion design, which is a great area. I mean, have you seen the covers of these magazines? I mean, fashion is just taken off, and the intersection between fashion and entertainment, and then if you overlay that with a brand, talent or not, I mean, it's art is a very fascinating environment going forward because of the technologies that are currently available, and you guys are in an enviable position because you guys are going to make the decisions as to where it goes next and where it goes after that. So that's the future. It's you guys. You guys are the future. You guys will decide who's going to wear what and how it's going to be seen. Whether it's going to be in a movie theater or on an iPhone. That's going to be your decision. So don't let these opportunities go by. I mean, and the other thing is, because it's changing, it's always going to be changing. Your idea could be the next best idea. All you got to do is just stay in the game. Just stay in the game. If you want to work in the entertainment, in the field of entertainment, it really, this early stage of the process, it may not matter where you go, as long as you find something in the entertainment field to do. And you might avail yourself to any kind of internship, paid or unpaid, volunteering. If it's theater you're interested in, volunteer at your local theater. There's several here in Los Angeles, if that was your if that's an idea. If it's fashion, we have the Los Angeles Fashion District. There must be hundreds of places that would welcome a college student who would be interested in learning the business. So you have to first avail yourself to what it is and where it is you want to go. You have to get into the room. And once you get in, don't let anybody take your seat.
Thank you, Charles.
I would say, you know, apart from, you know, being in school here and taking English courses, journalism, that's great. But you need to get a job doing what you want to do, work in that industry. If you want to be a television writer, you need a PA on a production. Now, the problem is, pretty much everybody can get a PA job, and you're going to be surrounded by studio execs, children, and other kids who probably don't want to be there, some people who want to be famous. The leg up that you have is that you really want to be there. And you need to stand out, so be confident. And I was told this at a young age, just don't be a dick. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
It will get you very far. The end.
Yeah, I would add that one of my very first jobs, I was like a runner for a TV show, and it's like, talk about the worst job in the world. It's like 5 o'clock. Can you go to the LAX airport? You're in Hollywood. We need it back here as fast as possible, and it's like you just want to go home. And so in a situation like that, you get your foot in the door whatever way you can. Once you've got your foot in the door, you meet people, you do a good job, they like you, you're not a dick, you're available, you go beyond the call of duty, you work harder than everybody else, and somebody's going to notice. And to get started, you're going to have to sacrifice. You might not get paid at all, you might not get paid very much, and you might have to do some really horrible job.
You're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
That's just part of it. The suffering is part of the art.
Just a couple of quick things. And one is, and I would never have thought of this when I was in school, but I kind of wish I'd thought of it back when I was in school. Take English classes. It's such a good background for everything. I mean, all of this is about communication. Even if you have a great idea, if you can't communicate it, you're lost. Your good idea is meaningless. And I'm stunned by how many young people in my office and a lot of people who work for me can't even do something basic like compose a good letter. It's amazing to me. I have to spell everything out for virtually everyone who's ever worked for me, and I'm thinking, you're well educated, you're smart. I don't understand how this relatively basic skill is beyond you, but yet oddly it is. So think about that, because it's the people in my office who have that kind of background and can communicate are so valued, and they're looked on as the next whatever, fill in the blank. Secondly, networking. I cannot overestimate the value of networking. I mean, every assistant in my office is networking the hell out of themselves every day. Everyone they meet, they're in their peer group, they're meeting them for coffee, drinks, they're out every night, they're meeting people, and those are the people you're going to rise up in the business with. And they're going to be the people you call for advice and to get your next job. And in fact, I'll tell you this, I considered a company switch recently. I was going to go do something else, and the guy I called was a guy I met when I was an assistant 25 years ago. And he was at a company I wanted to be at, and we've stayed in touch this entire time. I was at his wedding, and I called him, and he walked me into the door of his big management firm, and that would never have been possible had he and I not done that with each other way back when and stayed in touch. And the people I see who are successful in the business, they have a unique ability to reach out to people. They're shameless. And stay in touch with people. Even for the flimsiest reasons, it really doesn't matter. They'll maintain those connections, and it's those connections that are really going to work out for you.
That is true. And I'm sorry, that's so true too, because I mean, I was trying to leave the job that I'd had, and I was like, man, I really want to. I want to move on. I want to change up my career a little bit, just so I could have more time for my family, because the Kimmel job was just taking up a lot of time. And just randomly sent a text to a buddy just to say hi to him, who I admired, and he was like, what are you doing? I have this show starting up. I'm like, I'm there. And that's all it took. Because I just lobbed a hi to him, and it's true. You gotta keep the contacts, maintain friendships, that is essential to living in Los Angeles. And be a real person too, but those people are going to get you jobs.
Thank you very much. So that concludes the question portion of the panel. So just some takeaways from this panel, and you all were very informative, and thank you for your time. Honestly, we really appreciate all of you taking time out of your day come here and support our students and help them out, and I'm sure they really appreciate it as well. Just some takeaways that I got here from this panel was cultivate your interests. If you're an artist, find out what that passion is that you have for art and cultivate that. Look for internships if possible while you're still here. There's still opportunities to get work experience while you're still in college. I think there's a misconception that you need to wait till you graduate to find work experience. Like these gentlemen mentioned, there's opportunities for you to work now in your field, paid or unpaid. Networking also is huge. Find a mentor, somebody who can guide you along the way. Practice time management, be adaptable and flexible. Find peers to collaborate with, like-minded individuals who can work on projects with you, and you can kind of bounce ideas off of each other. Keep up with technology. Don't turn down any opportunities given to you, and don't be a dick. So, again, we thank you all very much for coming here.